Try it again, Jyoti. Just tell us.
Okay. Yes, it's done now. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, wonderful. So, Jolly Mataji, you ready?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Brenda Devi, you ready?
Yes.
All right.
Hare
So,
Krishna.
let me share my screen. Stop share. Why is it doing that? Okay, you carry on in the meantime while I try to get the screen shared. Bhagavad Gita. Brenda Devi, you can carry on while I get the chapter 13 on.
Okay. Chapter 13. Nature, the enjoyer and consciousness. Text 1 to
You can
2.
say the invocation too. Om Namo Bhagavate.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 1 to 2. Arjuna Uvacha Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Kshetram Kshetragyameva cha Etad Veditum Ichhami Jnanam Gyeyam cha Keshava Shri Bhagavan Idam Shariram Kaunteya Kshetram iti abhidhiyate Etadyo Veditam Prahu Kshetragya iti tadvidaha.
Like an electric post.
Arjuna said, "Oh, my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the feel of the knower of the feel, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge." The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field."
Text 3. Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi sarvakshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetragyayo jnanam yattej jnanam matam mama.
O Sion of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower of all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion.
Text 4. Tat kshetram yat chat yadricha yad vikari yatascha yat sachayo yat prabhavascha tat samasena me shrinu.
Now, please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what is his influence, what are his influence.
Text 5. Rishibhir bahudha gitam chandobhir vividhai prithak brahmasutra padaishchaiva hetu madbhir vinishchitai.
That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities described by various stages in the various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect.
Text 6, 7. Mahabhutanya hankaro buddhir avyaktameva cha indriyani dashaikam cha panchachendriya gocharaha ichha dveshaha sukham dukham sanghatashchetana dhritihi etat kshetram samasena savikaram udaritam.
can't see it, Prabhu. The five great elements: false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses and the mind, the 5 senses objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms, and convictions. All these are considered in my summary to be the field of activities and its interactions.
Text 8 to 12. Amanitvam adambhidvam ahimsa kshantirajvam acharyopasanam shaucham stairyam atma vinigraha indriyartheshu vairagyam anahankara evacha janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukha doshanudarshanam asaktir anabhishvangah putradara grihadishu nityam cha samachittatvam ishtanishtopapatishu Mayi chanaya yogena bhaktir avyabhicharini vivikta desha sevitam aratir jana samsadi adhyatma jnana nityatvam tattva jnanartha darshanam etaj jnanam iti proktam ajnanam yad atonyatha.
Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance.
Text 13. Gyeyam yattat pravakshyami yajkyatam ashnute anadimat param brahma nasattan nasaduchyate.
I shall now explain the knowable, knowing what you will taste, which you will taste the eternal Brahman, the spirit. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spiritual beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world.
Text 14. Sarvataha pani padam tat sarvatuk shiro mukham sarvataha shrutimaloke sarvam avritya tishtati.
Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads, and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the Supersoul exists, pervading everything.
Text 15. Sarvendriya gunabhasam sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarvabhrichaiva nirgunam gunabhoktricha.
The Supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature.
Text 16. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charameva cha sukshmatvat tad avigyeyam Durastham Chantike Chatat.
The supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and the non-moving. Because he is subtle, he is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all.
That's 17. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva cha sthitam bhuta bhartri cha tajgeyam grashishnu prabhavishnu cha.
Although the supersoul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all.
Text 18. Jyotishamapi taj jyotistamasah paramuchyate jnanam gyeyam jnanagamyam hridi sarvasya vishthitam.
He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart.
Text 19. Iti kshetram tatha jnanam gyeyam choktam samasataha madbhakta etad vigyaya madbhavayupadyate.
Thus, the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature.
Text 20. Prakritim purusham chaiva vidhyanadi ubhavapi vikaramscha gunamschaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavan.
Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature.
Text 21. Karya karane kartritve hetu prakritiruchyate purushaha sukha dukhanam bhoktritve hetur uchyate.
Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world.
Text 22. Purushaha prakristho hi bhukte prakritijan gunan karanam gunasangosya sadasad yoni janmasu.
The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to the association with the material nature. Thus, he meets with good and the evil among various species.
Text 23. Upadrashtanumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwaraha paramatmeti chapyukto dehesmin purushah paraha.
Yet, in this body, there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the supersoul.
Text 24. Ya evam veti purusham prakritim cha gunai saha sarvatha vartamanopi nasa bhuyo bhijayate.
One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position.
Text 25. Dhyanetatmani pashyanti kechidatmanamatmana anye sankhena yogena karma yogena chapare.
Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires.
Text 26. Anye tvevam ajanantaha shrudvanyebhya upasate tepi chati tarantyeva mrityum shruti parayanaha.
Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death.
Text 27. Yavat sanjayate kinchit sattvam sthavara jangamam kshetra kshetragya samyogat tadvidhi bharatashabha.
O chief of Bharatas, know that whatever you see in existence, both in the moving and non-moving, is only a combination of the field of activities and the knower of that field.
Text 28. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram vinashyat sava nashyantam yah pashyati sapashyati.
One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, actually sees.
Text 29. Samam pashyan hi sarvatra samavasthiramishwaram na hinastyatmanatmanam tato yati param gatim.
One who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches the transcendental destination.
Text 30. Prakrityaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvashah yaha pashyati tathatmanam akartaram sapashyati.
One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees.
Text 31. Yada bhuta prithak bhavam ekastham anupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadhyate tada.
When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception.
Text 32. Anaditvan nirgunatvat paramatmayam avyayaha sharirasthopi kaunteya na karoti na lipyate.
Those with the vision of eternity can see the imperishable soul in transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled.
Text 33. Yatha sarvagatam sokshmyad akasham no palipyate sarvatra vasthito dehe tathatma no palipyate.
The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body.
Text 34. Yatha prakashayati ekaha kritsnam lokam imam raviha kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata.
O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness.
Text 35. Kshetra kshetragyayorevam antaram jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti moksham cha ye viduryanti te param.
Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal. Hare Krishna. Is that finished?
Sorry, thank you very much, Brinda Devi and Jolie Mataji, for that wonderful recitation of the Sanskrit and English.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So now I'll share my screen. So we'll discuss today text, is it 7 and 8 of chapter 13 entitled Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. But first we'll say the Mangala Charanam prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivashadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namahom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarine. So welcome everyone to today's chat session. We have 51 attendees today, so that's wonderful. Just make sure that everyone's muted first, and then we can proceed. So today we will discuss this wonderful chapter, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, text 6 and 7. Mahabhutani hahankaro buddhir avyaktam evacha indriyani dhasakhimcha pancha chendriya gocharaha Ichadvesha sukham dukham sangatas chetana rithi etachetram samasena savikaram udharitam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The five great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. From all the authoritative statements of the great sages, the Vedic hymns and the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra, the components of this world can be understood as follows. First, they are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. These are the 5 great elements, Mahabhuta. Then they are false ego, intelligence, and the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of nature. Then there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Then 5 working senses, voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. Then above the senses, there is the mind, which is within and which can be called the sense within. Therefore, including the mind, there are 11 senses altogether. Then there are the 5 objects of the senses, smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. Now the aggregate of these 24 elements is called the field of activity. If one makes an analytical study of these 24 subjects, then he can very well understand the field of activity. Then there are desire, hatred, happiness, and distress, which are interactions, representations of the 5 great elements in the gross body. The living symptoms represented by consciousness and convictions are the manifestations of the subtle body, mind, ego, and intelligence. These subtle elements are included within the field of activities. The 5 great elements are a gross representation of the false ego, which in turn represents the primal stage of false ego, technically called the materialistic conception or tamasa buddhi, intelligence in ignorance. This further represents the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of material nature. The unmanifested modes of material nature are called pradhan. One who desires to know the 24 elements in detail, along with their interactions, should study the philosophy in more detail. In Bhagavad Gita, a summary only is given. The body is the representation of all these factors, and there are changes of the body which are 6 in number. The body is born, it grows, it stays, it produces byproducts, then it begins to decay, and at the last stage it vanishes. Therefore, the field is a non-permanent material thing. However, the Kshetragya, the knower of the field, its proprietor is different. So it's a beautiful verse. The 5 great elements, false ego, intelligence. Just want to make sure everyone's muted. The 5 great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. Wonderful, wonderful verse. Many of us have sometimes the tendency when we we see such analytical study of kshetra, the field, or which is the body, we may tend to switch off, thinking that this is a bit too technical. 5 of this, 5 of that, another 5 of this, another 5 of that, 3 of this, and then unmanifested stages. This is too much for my head. And we may switch off and think this is not so important. When we get to the Leela part, then I'll pay more attention. This won't be very good for our spiritual lives. This knowledge which Krishna is giving here is very, very important. And it is very important that we make the effort and the endeavor to understand it and to apply it in a practical sense in our daily lives. And in this way, we'll be able to progress and advance in our spiritual lives. And I'll explain more as we discuss today why this is so. Now, previously, we've been discussing the chapter 12. And chapter 12 is all about devotional service. It is entitled Devotional Service. It's all about Bhakti Yoga. Now, in this chapter 13, Krishna starts to describe Jnana Yoga. So one may ask the question, if Bhakti is the culmination of the yoga ladder, it's the topmost. Now, why is Jnana presented after the section on Bhakti? So we finished discussing the middle 6 chapters, which are considered to be the essence. And now we're coming to the chapter 13, where Krishna is talking about Kshetra, Kshetragya, Prakriti, consciousness, all very so-called Jnana. We may wonder why that is so. And there is a very good reason why Krishna is explaining it in that sequence. Because understanding the connection between Bhakti and Jnana will reveal that. So in chapter 12, text number 7, Krishna promised to save his devotees from the path of birth and death. He's the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death of his devotees. And chapters 13 to 18, which we studied, it fulfills this promise by giving us philosophical knowledge necessary by which we can extricate ourselves from the material entanglement. Now, this section, we call it the Jnana section. But actually, in truth, it is Bhakti. Normally, when we study the Bhagavad Gita, we say that the first section discusses how to achieve Bhakti through Karma Yoga, through work. And the last 6 chapters discuss how to achieve Bhakti through knowledge. And the middle 6 chapters discuss how to achieve Bhakti itself. Generally, that's our understanding. First 6, how we achieve Bhakti through work. Last 6, how we achieve Bhakti through Jnana. And middle 6, how we achieve Bhakti itself. So what is the use of Jnana? Jnana has its use in assisting us to detach from the material world and helps us in our journey to subsequently attach ourselves to Krishna. When we use this knowledge to attain devotion, then it becomes bhakti. So this Jnana helps us to become detached from matter and facilitates us becoming attached to Krishna. When it is connected to bhakti, it's good. In the same way, work by itself, when it's not connected to bhakti, it's useless. But that work, when it enables us to connect to bhakti, then it's wonderful. As our acharyas explain, karma and jnana by themselves, they are useless. Actually, they are very, very weak. Our acharyas explain karma and jnana, work and knowledge, By themselves, they're just weak and they're useless. But when both come in contact with bhakti, then they get some value. They get some value. So in the same way, in the first 6 chapters, working for Krishna, working in the mode of devotion, in bhakti, that leads us to the transcendental destination, which is Uttama Bhakti. And in the same way, jnana, knowledge, when in contact or used for bhakti, then it helps us onto the path of transcendental bhakti, Uttama Bhakti. So this is the essence of this chapter 13. This chapter 13, there's a lot of analytical knowledge, just as we reading in the purport, that's contained in this particular verse and chapter. Like we're reading 2 concepts we've been discussing, kshetra and kshetragya. Knowledge, the field of activity, and the knower of the field. So the field of the activity is this body, and the knower of the body, kshetragya, is the soul. And as Krishna says in this particular chapter, in this verse 27, he says, one can understand that everything moving and non-moving in this material world is a combination of kshetra and kshetragya. Everything moving and non-moving can be understood. This is what Krishna says in text number 27 of this verse. So in the same way, as explained in this beautiful verse in the Sri Ishopanishad, there's one beautiful verse. Vidyam chayas tad vedo bhayam saha avidyaya mrityum titva vidya yamritam ashnate. One who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. This is a very, very important verse from the Sri Ishopanishad. So in the Sri Ishopanishad, within the middle sections, 9 to 15, I think it is, we learn what is knowledge and what is real activity. So in this verse, it tells us that one should learn the process of nescience and transcendental knowledge side by side. So when one reads this verse, one may think, what is Sri Ishopanishad talking about? We should learn the process of nescience side by side with the process of transcendental knowledge. Someone may say, but we thought just nescience is useless. No, what this verse means, generally knowledge about matter is considered to be nescience. And then spiritual knowledge is considered to be like avidyam is nescience and vidyam is transcendental knowledge. This verse is explaining, noting about the body, about material nature, about matter, at the same time as transcendental knowledge. This can help us transcend the influence of repeated birth and death. Now, someone may ask the question, how is that? Just like if we have a boat and we want to cross from this shore to another distant shore with this boat. This boat is going to take us to that destination where we want to go to. If we know nothing about this boat, how the boat operates, how it functions, what is good, how to steer the boat. If we know absolutely nothing about the boat, It may happen, although we have the boat, we can go around in circles and circles and circles with the boat. And sometimes we may even sink the boat because we do not know how to operate the boat. So in the same way, all of us, the spirit soul, we are situated in the material body. And if we know how we are situated in this material body, how this body functions, how the mind functions, how the body is influenced by the mind and the intelligence and the false ego, and how all of this interacts with the modes of material nature, how that influences the soul. If we all know that, then we can surmount the challenges and the difficulties that come with the body. As we said previously, the essence, just to give you one simple example, the essence of all spiritual life is smartavya satatam Vishnu, Vishma smartavya na jyotisha. That means the essence of all spiritual life is to always remember and never forget Krishna. This requires a level of fixity, a level of peace of mind, a level of stability in our lives. And it means to fix our mind on Krishna, to always think of Krishna. We need to understand how the material mind operates and functions. So this verse, Krishna is explaining about Kshetra Gya, or Kshetra, the body. Krishna is explaining the components of this field of activities. There are the 5. Prabhupada explains there are 24 elements, components which constitute the field, Kshetra, the field. And what are those 24 elements? First, we have the 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. This is the gross body. And then we have the 5 sense objects: sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. And then we have the mind, intelligence, and ego. And then we have the 5 knowledge acquiring senses: the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the skin. And then we have the 5 working senses: the voice, sometimes known as sound, the legs, the hands, the anus, and the genitals. And then we have the 24th element, which is called the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of material nature, also known as pradhan. So this constitutes the field of activities. And when this field, there's this interaction taking place within this field of activities, we have different interactions taking place. And then from these interactions, there's different manifestations. Desire, like within this body, there's so many desires that are coming from our all the time. I want to do this. I want to eat this. I want to achieve this. So much of desires are coming. Where from are they coming? They are coming from the interaction of these 24 components. Sometimes we feel hatred. Sometimes we feel happiness. Sometimes we feel distress. This is all the interactions of the material body. And sitting aloof from all of these interactions of desire, hatred, happiness, and distress is the soul, as Krishna has explained. And the interactions of the subtle body, Prabhupada explains, is represented by consciousness and convictions. And this is the basis of all knowledge. We have the 5 great elements, as Prabhupada repeats it. And from all of this, we also have the 6 changes of the body. This field, it goes through changes. It takes birth, it grows, We all know we were babies, we were born, we grew, we stayed for some time. Some of us produce byproducts, children. Some of us are in the decaying stage, old age. And some of us are closer to death, some are a little further. But without fail, every one of us, we will go through these 6 changes. And we should understand, those people are in material consciousness. The moment they start to get old, they start to try to make all sorts of arrangements. There's a science called cryogetics. In cryogetics, the science is just about freezing the material body to preserve it. Very rich people, they pay a huge sum of money to have their body preserved. And with the hope that one day when people find the cure to death and disease, they'll reawaken. But, as Prabhupada says, Sri Ishopanishad says, they will never, ever, it's impossible for them to cure old age and death. Some scientists have tried, they've looked for the gene in the genetic code that triggers old age. And they tried to see whether they can deactivate that gene. And every time they tried, they found out it causes so much of other complications. And those scientists have now concluded it's impossible for us to tinker with the old age gene because we can't understand it. So as devotees, we'll all go through these 6 changes. We should never become bewildered by them, or neither should we become caught up to try to hold back old age and death. With a sober mind, through the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, through this, we can understand. That's why Krishna, the night before he left this planet Earth, he met Uddhava. And when he met Uddhava, Uddhava asked the Lord to please instruct him that after when he leaves, we will have this knowledge. And then Krishna spoke the Uddhava Gita. And in this Uddhava Gita, chapters 22, 23, 24, and 25, 4 chapters, extensive chapters, Krishna explains Kshetragya and Kshetra. Prabhupada says in the purport, Bhagavad Gita just gives a summary. But in the Uddhava Gita, which is the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna speaks extensively on this. And if anyone wants to, and I think all of us should, we must, please go read these chapters 22, 23, 24, and 25. And in this way we can understand. And understanding, like Krishna says, for us to progress, we must break this connection with the body and mind. Krishna explains the 6 processes we just spoke about very nicely in the 22nd chapter. He says the different stages of transformations of material bodies occur just like those of the flame of a candle, the current of a river, or the fruits of a tree. Just like the wavering flame of a candle sometimes waxes brightly and then becomes weak, and finally it vanishes. In the same way, our bodies, we burn brightly in our youth, we wax, and then we wane in our old age, and finally we vanish. Same with the waves of a flowing river. Sometimes the waves rise, and sometimes they fall, and sometimes they create innumerable patterns and shapes, and then it goes away. The fruits of a tree, they take birth, they grow, they ripen, they sweeten, and eventually they rot and die. And similarly, one can understand that one's own body is undergoing constant transformation and is subject to old age, disease, and death. Krishna explains this so beautifully in these chapters of the 11th canto, giving wonderful analogies. And the same way in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadev Goswami instructed Parikshit Maharaj. When Shukadev Goswami arrived, while Parikshit Maharaj was waiting to be instructed, Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukadev Goswami, what is the duty of one who is about to die? What he should hear about, what should he speak about, who should he remember, and who should he worship? And firstly, Shukadev Goswami speaks to him about detachment. And then Sukadev Goswami says, ask more, Parikshit Maharaj. And Parikshit Maharaj just didn't jump and say, explain to me Leela avatars. He didn't say that. He actually told, Parikshit Maharaj said, he said, you know everything because you are without material contamination. Therefore, whatever you have spoken appears to be perfectly right. He says, I beg to know from you how the personality of Godhead by his personal energies creates these phenomenal universes as they are, which are inconceivable even to the great demigods. Kindly explain how the Supreme Lord, who is all-powerful, engages his different energies and different expansions in maintaining and again winding up the phenomenal world. And then he says, explain to me about creation, primary creation and secondary creation. So Parikshit Maharaj was so intelligent, he understood that firstly, let me know about this creation, because I am now in this creation and I need to transcend this creation, and then I can go to the transcendental world. So in this way, we should study these chapters, these verses. That's what Prabhupada is asking us to do in the purport. And in this way, we will advance in our bhakti. And this is the reason why Krishna is giving us this knowledge. And we should not be dismissive about it and think it's not so important. It's very important. Sorry, I've gone over time, much over time. I do apologize. Are there any questions, comments, or reflections? We'll take that now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, Jolly first, you, and then Sandeep Prabhu. Yes, Jolly.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Okay. I'm referring to the chapters 8 to 12. And wonder how it connects with the Brahmana story in Srimad Bhagavatam 10, chapter 10, about the Jadabharata, who the qualities that chapter Srimad Bhagavatam is saying, cleanliness comes into it, but he was disheveled and down and out. And how does that fit with all those qualities as a Brahmana? Does it make sense?
Are you talking about Sudama Brahmana? Which Brahmana are you talking about?
He's talking about Jad Bharat.
Jad Bharat.
Are you talking about Jad Bharat?
Yeah.
And you want to know how the qualities that are given in the Gita relate to him?
With his position as a Brahmana.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right. So Jad Bharata, he was king, and then he became a deer, and then he acted as deaf and dumb.
That's right.
Yeah, deaf and dumb. Actually, Krishna explains that very nicely in the section of the 11th canto. In chapter number 23, after Krishna has explained about the 24 elements, he talks about the Avanti Brahmana.
Yeah.
And this Avanti Brahmana, he was a very rich and stingy Brahmana. And eventually, through the mercy of the Lord, he realized how how futile material nature is. And then he became a mendicant. And as a mendicant, he was criticized, he was spat upon, he was ridiculed. So how this relates to is Jad Bharat. Externally, he may have acted, also be seen as an unclean state. But internally, he was on the platform of everything that was discussed by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, all of those qualities. So one cannot judge a person or a living entity externally. It is said a fool is known when he speaks. So in the just same way, Jat Bharata, when King Rahugana was chastising him for moving the palanquin, then Jat Bharata spoke. And when he spoke, all of those qualities that Krishna described in the Gita came out. So to answer your question is how they connect. They connect in that he had all of those qualities internally. They were not manifested externally, and sometimes that does happen.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of the teachings, Krishna conscious teachings, say about how you have to the ethics and the morals in practicing. You have to clean regularly, and you know, bath, shower, all that sort of thing. So it's kind of a barrier in that sense.
Yeah, we need to understand just quickly, Mataji. There is sadhana bhakti, and then there's rag bhakti, and then there's avadut, right? We in sadhana bhakti, all of these rules and regulations and procedures and cleanliness and all of that are extremely, extremely important. But they are highly elevated souls who are completely out of the bodily concept of life, like Jat Bharata, the Avanti Brahman, and so on.
Yeah.
So those souls, these principles apply slightly different to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he had most of the qualities. That's the one I was questioning.
Yeah, those qualities internally.
Yeah, Haribo.
Hare Krishnas. Sandeep Prabhu, you had a question, a comment?
Prabhuji, no question. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. All I was saying is, please do not worry about being late, because this is a very long chapter and it takes time to initially come to you, and then it is complicated as well, the subject itself. So please do not think that you have overshot the time, or anything. That's all I wanted to say, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, it's such an importance. There's so much to speak about. Even I wanted to cover some of those aspects of chapter 24, where Krishna explains how, firstly, there's the false ego, how the modes come from that, how all of these different elements manifest from the top. But you can read that, chapter 24, canto 11 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Most of y'all have Bhagavatam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So I was, just an observation on this chapter and the linkage with Sankhya philosophy, just spoken in Canto 3. So I was kind of reading this chapter, and here I think Kapila Dev explains the technical explanation of material elements and the energies of the Lord. Sankhya philosophy helps the living entity cut the knot of attachment to the temporary world by breaking down the various constituents of material nature and removing its superficial allure. Although a devotee knows bhakti is supreme, he utilizes such philosophical analysis to fortify his attachment and disinterest in the objects of material enjoyment. So I'm just trying to...
That's beautiful. That's the essence of what Srila Prabhupada is explaining here, and the essence of these chapters. What is the reference, what you just read?
I actually was looking at Sutta Prabhu's Bhagavad Compact.
Yes.
Yeah, and obviously Canto 3, where the conversation between Lord Kapila Dev and Mother Devuti.
Yes, that's beautiful. That's the essence of what I was trying to say today.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just trying to make that connection. So I just
thank you.
Reflect back.
Thank you so much, Rajesh Prabhu. That's perfect. That's perfect. Any other questions, comments, reflections? Does it make sense?
Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, just please explain the difference between Pradhan and the Mahatattva. Some say the 24 Mahatattva is inclusive in the 24 elements, and some say it is the Pradhan which is inclusive.
Prabhupada explains the Pradhan as being the unmanifested stage of the three modes of material nature. That's how Pradhan is like the sum total of everything. And from Pradhan, this is my understanding, manifests the Mahatattva. Like
Okay.
Pradhan is the sum total of everything, and then from there
Yes.
is the Mahatattva. It's a manifestation. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Hare Krishna. All right, devotees, this is 8:45 now. Chandra Chaitanya Prabhu, you unmuted yourself. Did you like to make a comment or reflection?
Just to say how much I enjoyed this explanation of this chapter, which at first glance seems so difficult to comprehend.
Yes, Prabhupada.
I think we did double the time to get into really the mood of this chapter, but thank you so much for it.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your comment. Very important chapter. All right, devotees, thank you so much. Oh, let me just go to the chat. Sometimes some of you all write on the chat and I don't get your questions. Let me just go see. Okay. Okay. I'm unable to interact due to my, okay. However, hearing me helps considerably, and I'm grateful to the group for tolerating me and enlightening me. Hare Krishna, Leela Purush. Thank you, Prabhu, for your participation. Thank you. Just your presence here, Leela Purushottam Prabhu, is very purifying. Okay. Okay. Everyone's appreciating. Okay, so there's no more other questions. All of you all showing, expressing your views. Thank you so much for that. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaura
Thank you,
Premanandi.
Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.